You think your job sucks? Try wiping royal butts, stomping in buckets of pee, or hunting treasure in Victorian sewers. Humans have had some spectacularly awful jobs, and yes, people actually did them. Let's take a dark, hilarious walk through the worst gigs in history. Number 1. The Royal Poop Butler, aka Groom of the Stool. Your job is stressful, sure, but does it involve holding a towel while the king poops? Because that's what the Groom of the Stool did, a real high-ranking court position in Tudor England. Your job was to help the king during his bathroom time. That meant prepping the stool, the toilet, not, handing over cloths, assisting in cleanup, and even recording his bowel movements for health records. No, I'm not making this up. There are historical documents. They took notes on the royal turds. But here's the wild part. It was considered an honor. Why? Because you had unmatched access to the king at his most vulnerable. You literally saw him with his pants down, which in royal court politics meant trust, and trust meant influence. According to historian David Starkey, the Groom of the Stool was often closer to the king than his own advisors. You might have started your day with a butt wipe, but by noon you could be giving input on matters of state. Incredible career arc, really. So yeah, next time you're annoyed about getting CC'd on a pointless email chain, just remember, you didn't need to monitor royal digestion to climb the corporate ladder. Number 2. Leech Collector Human Buffet Edition. You know what's worse than getting bit by leeches? Doing it on purpose, repeatedly, for money. Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, leeches were the superstars of medicine. Got a headache leeches, bad vibes leeches, probably possessed extra leeches, so naturally someone had to collect them, and that someone was usually poor, barefoot, and very available to bleed. Leech collectors waded into swamps, bogs, and stagnant ponds, let the leeches attach to their legs, and waited until they were good and plump. The worst part, overharvesting meant that leeches got scarce, so you had to travel farther, stay in the water longer, and risk hypothermia, just to feed your local apothecary's bloodlust. Imagine explaining that to your Tinder date. So what do? I provide premium leech meat using only organic leg-based methods. Modern medicine eventually realized this was maybe not the best idea, but for decades your health was basically powered by someone's blood-soaked calves. Still think your unpaid internship was bad. Number 3. The Sin Eater. Now with extra guilt. Let's say someone dies. Naturally, the family is grieving, but there's a problem. What if the deceased had like a ton of unresolved sins? What if Chad the blacksmith was just out here committing medieval tax fraud? Enter the Sin Eater. This was a very real job in parts of 17th and 18th century Britain. The gig, you'd show up to a funeral, sit by the corpse, and eat a meal, often bread and ale, placed on or near the body. The belief was that the sins of the dead would pass into the food, then into you. So congratulations, you are now a walking vessel of second-hand guilt. Sin eaters were usually poor, outcast, and desperate. They weren't exactly invited to the after-party. People wanted them to do their weird little sin ritual and leave. But they were still needed because who wants Grandpa haunting the house over a stolen chicken? It's like ancient emotional outsourcing. Oh no, my husband died with unresolved rage issues. Can someone eat that real quick? Today we call it therapy. Back then it was a guy chewing bread over a corpse for 2 coins and a side of social exile. Number 4. TOSHER, aka Victorian Sewer Treasure Hunter. If Indiana Jones had trench foot and smelled like poop, he might have been a tosher. Toshers were sewer scavengers in 19th century London. Their job, crawl through human waste, dead rats, and disease-ridden sludge to find lost valuables, coins, cutlery, tools, anything that could be sold. Imagine being ankle-deep in history's filthiest soup and going, yes, I chose this. Still, Toshers braved it all for a few shillings a night. Some even became urban legends like Jack Black, the royal rat catcher who hunted rats and made pets out of them. Because trauma bonding is real, also methane, as in explosive gas. Sewers weren't just gross, they were flammable. One wrong move and it's human candle time. So yeah, next time your office smells like burnt microwave popcorn, be grateful it's not Victorian methane stew. Number 5. The urine-stomper fuller. Back before washing machines, people had to get creative about how to clean fabric, like medieval creative. So how do you clean wool in the 14th century with urine? And not just a little sprinkle. We're talking full vats of human pee, and someone you maybe had to stomp in it, barefoot, for hours. Congratulations, you're a fuller. The ammonia in urine actually helped cleanse and soften wool, which is cool from a chemistry standpoint and horrifying from a what is my life standpoint. This wasn't just a short-term gig either. You'd spend your days knee-deep in fermented public, toilet water mashing wet wool like you were making wine if wine hated you. And this was normal, legal, expected. Someone in your village was literally the pea guy, and that was just fine. Number 6, the plague doctor iconic look terrible job. You've seen the outfit, long, dark robes, wide-brimmed hat, and that nightmare-inducing beak mask that says, "I dabble in death and bird cosplay." Meet the plague doctor, your go-to health provider during the worst pandemics in history. Sounds heroic, right? Except, these guys had basically zero medical training. Most plague doctors were just anyone vaguely literate and willing to be around dying people for cash. The beak mask. It was stuffed with herbs and flowers because people thought bad smells, not germs, caused disease. Spoiler, that didn't work. You'd wander into neighborhoods that smelled like despair and decomposing bodies armed with a stick to poke people from a safe distance and a job description that amounted to watch people die, then write it down. Some were lucky enough to survive. Others became statistics. Number 7, powder monkey, child labor but explosive. Let's take a moment to appreciate how chill your childhood was. Because back in the age of sail, some kids weren't playing tag. They were running gunpowder through warships while cannonballs flew overhead. Meet the powder monkey, the most adorable-sounding, horrifying job in naval history. Typically aged 8 to 14, powder monkeys were tasked with fetching black powder from the ship's magazine, aka Giant Powder Room of Death, and delivering it to cannons during battle. Fast, efficient, preferably without getting blown to pieces. They were chosen for their small size, easier to squeeze through narrow passageways. Not because they were safe, just more portable. A report from the Royal Navy Archives notes that the mortality rate among powder monkeys was brutally high, and the survivors often dealt with lifelong trauma. But hey, they were technically enlisted, so patriotic? It's like if your summer internship involved sprinting through a fireworks factory while someone tried to sink your building. Number 8. The whipping boy, royal friendship, but make it violent. Imagine being best friends with a prince. Pretty cool, right? You get fancy food, live in a palace, maybe play some medieval Fortnite, aka jousting with sticks. Now imagine this. The prince messes up, throws a tantrum, insults the tutor. You get whipped for it, because he's royal and no one's allowed to lay a finger on his precious golden behind. Welcome to the life of a whipping boy, the most tragically loyal job in monarchy history. Historical records from 17th century England show that whipping boys were often educated alongside the prince, ate similar meals, and technically held respected roles right up until it was time to get lashed for someone else's attitude problem. So if your roommate eats your leftovers and you feel like yelling at them but don't congrats, you've evolved beyond royal emotional management. So yeah, maybe your job's not so bad. If your brain survived this video without losing faith in humanity, give it a high five, then hit like, subscribe, or comment the weirdest job you've ever heard of. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.